Speaker of the National Assembly, members of the media, visitors, an exceptional good afternoon to you all. I rise to my dissatisfaction with Budget 2023, presented on Monday, January 16, 2023, to this noble assembly, captioned Improving Lives Today, Building Prosperity for Tomorrow. This title is a misnomer, as the government remains relatively apathetic to the welfare of the poor. Mr. Speaker, the people of Guyana clearly expected a budget designed to address developmental needs, tackle poverty, create jobs, and redistribute revenues in a manner to benefit the working class and the indigent. But this overview of the estimate of income and expenditure for 2023 is dismal, troubling, characterized by blaming and finger pointing, especially when an industry or a sector is underperforming, to say the least. I must say, Mr. Speaker, that this parliamentary assembly has heard better presentations from Mr. Singh, the honorable member. But this one was certainly not up to par. I am tempted to forgive him because it can be attributed to the straw-colored liquid that was imbibed by the minister. The frequency of its usage may have had a toll on the minister's delivery of the budget presentation to the Assembly for 2023. The Honorable Dr. Ashley Kumar Singh, Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance, exhibited an optimism that only the honorable members seem to share. The Finance Minister proffered tidings inconsistent with good governance, which is key in fostering growth and reducing poverty. The honorable member's presentation revealed a lack of transparency, which is paramount in policy making. The presenter also fell short of describing to the citizenry the efforts to be made to combat practices which are dishonest. The honorable member failed to explain to the Guyanese populace how they will benefit from the natural resources production. Mr. Speaker, a clearer perception, and understanding of the government's comprehensive plan for this newfound wealth would be exciting to the Guyanese people. The citizenry would like to know how will the increase in GDP integrate into the plan for sustainable development and economic growth. Mr. Speaker, it is a well-known fact that an orderly oil market today provides the essential base for a stable, orderly oil market tomorrow. Mr. Speaker, we are talking about enormous sums of money here, and the people of Guyana would want this massive and budgeted sum of $781.9 billion to be utilized in an efficient, effective, and equitable manner to all Guyanese, inclusive of the poor and vulnerable, both now and in the future. Efforts must be made by this government to root out depravity, insecurity, and lack of confidence, as was mentioned in the Stabroek and Kaichor News on January 22, 2023. Mr. Speaker, the writer of the article indicated that there must be a level playing field to prevent a race to the bottom, which could lead to racism and racial hate conflict. Mr. Speaker, on paying close attention to the budget, it is obvious that Guyana remains one of the world's fastest growing economies in the medium term, but the risks of proper management of the oil wealth, the quality of spending by this government, and the effects of the Dutch disease are already evident. Mr. Speaker, the non-oil growth rate is struggling. The sectors, as was mentioned by one of my colleagues, like agriculture, which had made a significant contribution to the economy in 2019, is struggling. What is noted, Mr. Speaker, as more resources are poured into the economy, as was alluded to earlier, there is not a concomitant effect in the quantity of investments. Rather, there's a decline. And so, more money and a bigger budget does not necessarily mean better spending. In 2018, the APNU-AFC coalition went after the so-called rich ones who are not paying taxes in the mining sector. More specifically, the gold sector. We even had a period of amnesty. We had collected $876 million US. But with the arrival of the PPP small c regime, there was a massive relief, lot of relief measures. And in 2022, we saw gold reduced to $830 million US, which was less than what was obtained in 2019. And COVID-19 is not to be blamed, Mr. Speaker, because mandatory masking was removed in 2022. Mr. Speaker, the inflation rate is on the increase, moving from 5.7% in 2021 to the 7.2% as estimated in December 2022. And because of the rising food prices, which contributed to 6.4%, according to Mr. Ashley Singh, the honorable member. So you would agree with me, Mr. Speaker, that a mere 8% with tax is certainly inadequate for the survival and a good quality of life for the public servants and Guyana as a whole. In addition to inflation, the government deficit is rising as seen in 2019, where the government deficit stood at $29.9 billion when compared to 2021 and 2022, where the government deficit was $114.8 and $155.5 billion respectively. And it's projected to rise even further in 2023 to $167.6 billion. Mr. Speaker, what we have seen in this budget is nothing short of the paradox of plenty. If at a minimum wage of 85,000 Guyana dollars, which one of the colleagues, the member over there said it works out to $3 billion, if 12,000 persons are taken off the payroll, Mr. Speaker, that in itself is indicative of a paradox of plenty. The threshold should be at a minimum of 150,000 Guyana dollars monthly. So the caption of the budget, which reads, improving lives today, building prosperity for tomorrow, should be replaced with the theme, a deteriorating quality of life for the Guyanese people in the midst of an oil increasing wealth, while simultaneously borrowing large sums of money, thus affecting present and future generations. Well done, Harry. Well done. Mr. Speaker, I will now turn my attention to the health sector, which has been, $84.9 billion has been allotted, budgeted for in 2023, an increase in $10.4 billion from 2022. The known adage of the health of the nation being the wealth of the nation, is certainly true. The populace deserves public health services that are acceptable, accessible, affordable, appropriate, timely, and of a high quality, and which are staffed by competent and trained medical professionals. The members of this side of the House believe that a valiant effort must be made to respond to local and transnational public health challenges. As we have seen, we have emerging diseases. Mr. Speaker, please allow me to remind the Honorable Minister that the APNU-AFC coalition, notwithstanding operating on 1/12 of its budget in 2020, had proudly controlled the COVID-19 pandemic between 2019 and 2020. Yes. There was the establishment of a task force that met regularly. There was a health emergency. Listen to me, I'm going somewhere. There was health emergency operation, the HEOC, which the PPPC dismantled. There was public health measures making use of the 3 W's, washing your hands, watching your distance, wearing a mask, the 3 T's, increased testing, contact tracing and treatment. We had the 4 E's, where you encourage the patients, you engage them, you explain to them the need of using the 3 W's, you encourage them, and then if they do not listen and adhere to the gazetted orders, then you enforce the law. While the PPP has since adopted this mantra, there was intersectoral and interagencies collaboration. Included also were home isolations, lockdowns, active surveillance. There was the expansion of laboratory service that was assisted by our technical partners, including the Pan American Health Organization and the World Health Organization. The impacts from social economic effects due to COVID were addressed by partnering with regional and local farmers. The database was already set up for the rollout of the cash grants. And topping the list, Mr. Speaker, the APNU-AFC coalition government conceived and achieved the first of its kind, the COVID-19 hospital in the Caribbean. If that was not insight and foresight, I don't know what it is. Mr. Speaker, COVID-19 and its impacts remains a matter of national concern as new strains of the virus emerge, such as the Alpha, the Delta, the Omicron, and now we have subvariants from BA1 to BQ, November 22, BQ1, BQ1.1, and in 2023 we now have XBB.1.5. The PPP government has adopted a laissez-faire attitude towards controlling the spread of the virus in Guyana. Consequently, many people travel around without protective wear with the risk of being infected or infecting others. Timely reporting of the incidence of the disease by the government has gone by the wayside, and Guyanese are being left to defend themselves against the virus and the reckless management of the government. As is typical of the PPP small c, it engages in the infantile behavior of not taking responsibility for its actions or inactions. You folks would recall the evidence of the deal with the Sputnik vaccine and the middleman, but we won't go there. Mr. Speaker, at paragraph 4.112 healthcare. Mr. Speaker, universal access to public health coverage is a right and an entitlement. According to the United Nations Declarations of Human Rights, a standard of living must be adequate for the health and the well-being of himself or herself and family, and should include medical care. Therefore, the government must ensure this fundamental right of every Guyanese citizen being universal health coverage, and more particularly, Sustainable Development Goal number 3 is protected. In addition, The Constitution at Article 24 states, as I quote, every citizen has the right to free medical attention and also to social care in the case of old age or disability, close quote. Mr. Speaker, the APNU-AFC coalition proposed that Guyana's national health objectives must be driven by the universal access to health care, the promotion of universal primary health care, and emphasis on preventative care. At paragraph 4113, speaks to expanding primary and secondary health care. The APNU-AFC coalition will always defend efforts to improve the health of its nation and welcome any reasonable steps to expand the delivery of health care. However, while the government wants to expand tertiary health care, the weight and the focus should still be on primary health care. We are aware of the differences in the availability and delivery of such care between the coastal and the hinterland areas of our country, and you should be trying to narrow the gaps. It is our wish that the government work together with the municipalities and the neighborhood health systems and the health centers within the communities to ensure that the provision of primary health care is realized. Health facilities and infrastructure. We have learned of several health initiatives being taken or proposed by the government. We will always defend efforts to improve the health of this nation and welcome any reasonable steps to expand the delivery of health care, as I reiterate. At 4.114, mention was made of 11.9 billion being paid as mobilization advance, and works were initiated and site preparations for 6 regional hospitals and the state-of-the-art pediatric and maternal hospital. In our view, it is not unreasonable for additional hospitals to be built by the government in communities that can transform the imbalance between life and death in favor of life. Indeed, the main public hospital in Georgetown and its committed staff members bears a far greater burden that it should carry, an unflattering reputation about the services that it provides. For many, the thought of the public hospital conjures up images of incompetence, misery, and death. Stories continue to abound about inexplicable maternal deaths and lack of agility and compassion for emergency and trauma patients seeking the attention of its medical personnel. But we must raise questions to the reason the government will spend upwards of several billions of dollars on 6 new regional hospitals and specialty hospitals, and at the same time facilitate the establishment of several private hospitals. This government has advanced medical tourism as justification for entering public-private partnerships for healthcare. In other words, Mr. Speaker, the government, which is already sharing a paltry 5% of our national income with the workers of the country, is asking them now to transfer that sum of that meager money through their taxes to family, friends, and favorites who are already enjoying 95% of the country's wealth. The demand for taxes of workers is being made under the guise of promoting medical tourism, something of no value to the workers of this country. One company, I think Sheriff Medical, has emerged as a prominent investor in private hospitals around this country. The resources of this company are open to question, and not many Guyanese might know of the close relationship between the owners of this private.
You're now imputing on the company that can't defend themselves either. So, honorable member, please withdraw that. Thank you.
Yes, I'm so advised, and it's alleged that the person has a close connection with the second vice president of the PPP government, the honorable member who should be here. We find it to be more than coincidental and heartless that the government is getting all sorts of favors to this group of investors without questioning the source of its funds. We have
Honorable, again, that the government is getting favors from this group, right? So I don't know. She said alleged, right? But the honorable member Mahi Paul on your side is saying it's true. So I asked him to produce the evidence. Thank you.
Mary Paul, I'm speaking to you. I'm not listening to my. In fact, I
Okay.
want some protection.
Honorable, I'll give you the protection from Mahi Paul, yes.
We need could I go on? Yes, we need clarity as to what is behind having this private entity build several hospitals and how much help the government will force the already cash-strapped taxpayers of this country to give to the endeavors of this entity. Festival City. We are pleased that $92 million was spent at Festival City Polyclinic. The construction, which commenced under our watch and the brainchild of the APNU ASC coalition, I think we must have mature politics to if we did something, just compliment us for it. No big deal. All right? Hashtag no big deal. The construction of the polyclinic was intended to be new and not to be retrofitted. It's supposed to be new and not to be retrofitted. This facility is expected to provide dental, rehabilitation, and laboratory service to the community in South Rumpelt and its environs. It is the wish from the APNU ASC coalition that, like the Lusignan Diabetic Clinic, the Festival City would offer also a retinopathy clinic, a diabetes and pregnancy clinic, and a diabetic foot care clinic also. We hope that it's going to be also be done there. At 4115, it is the wish of the completion of the Bartical Regional Hospital as the West Demerara and Sully Hospital were constructed with the same source of funding. An amount of 1.8 billion is allowed to allocated in budget 2021 for the facilities that will deploy communication technology and telemedicine. I trust that the honorable member, Dr. Frank Anthony, will remember the telemedicine that was implemented at the health facilities at Baracara and the New Amsterdam Hospital as well. Mr. Speaker, health is decentralized, and so access to primary, secondary, or tertiary care should be based on quality, reliability, and inclusivity. So we do look forward without delay to the upgrade of the Karasabai, Anai, and Sand Creek Health Centers, which are slated to be done for $237 million. Drugs and medical supplies. At paragraph 4116, the government plans to spend $2.5 billion to enhance the quality of health care for the purchase of medical equipment across the 10 developmental regions, an increase of $0.4 billion. It is our wish that there be training for the biomedical technicians so that we would not have equipment lying as white elephants. At paragraph 4117, the PPPC describes a broken mechanism of pharmaceutical supply chain management, which needed to be rectified, and that Materials Management Unit, MMU, aims to fulfill 80% of all requests to be made for drugs and medical supply. Mr. Speaker, what needs to be done is an improvement in quality assurance, a mechanism to ensure the quality of all the products being delivered to clients. Anecdotal evidence, Mr. Speaker, would show that for a particular diabetic drug, when used from the government pharmacy is often inferior to a similar drug from a non-governmental pharmacy and sees better outcome, including diabetic control. It's anecdotal. Mr. Speaker, efforts must be made quickly and methodically to have product quality surveillance to monitor. If you monitor, that will solve the problem. And analyze temperature and humidity at the store warehouse during transportation. To improve, there must be a pharmacovigilance, more storage space, operationalize at the drug bond. The lab, there's a lab at the drug one, just make sure it's operationalized. Have the drugs available and better relationship with the manufacturers. Mr. Speaker, The Auditor General Report 2021 says that the head of the budget agency must take action to ensure that drugs and medical supplies paid are delivered as intended from the Auditor General's report. All right? And it also goes on to say that regions, because we benefit from economy of scale from the regions, they send it to us and we buy in the bulk. And so we're hoping that the regions too can reconcile and provide a list of the drugs and medical supplies requested so they can have some kind of reconciliation. Mr. Speaker, it's an old problem in the sense that it's 750,000 persons living in Guyana. And so you find these big time manufacturers, they won't have, we won't able to order drugs. We don't have the capacity to order big set of drugs, thousands and millions of drugs. So because they will benefit from economy of scale. So we'll always have this problem. And so what we have to do, maybe, Mr. Honorable Member, Mrs. Dr. Singh, Frank, Anthony, we may have to, rather than buying every year drug, maybe buy every 2 years. Because it's something that you may want to think about. Because if you buy 1 year, it's always, so you may have to buy 2 drugs, right? I mean, 2 years or 3, let's make it like a kind of multi-year. So something to consider. All right, that's my recommendation, sir. All right? And these manufacturers, as I was saying, certainly want to benefit from economies of scale. Mr. Speaker, it's good to know that Guyana plans to partner with intergovernmental South-South cooperation. I saw the first, His Excellency, I think went to COP21, where we met with Ms. Maya, Our Excellency Maya Motley, and some others from Africa and Brazil. And this initiative, I think, was birthed. It's aimed at developing, manufacturing 60% of all essential contemporary pharmaceuticals for the populations of Latin America, the Caribbean, and Africa by 2040. I think it's a step in the right direction. Although initial intent was for the cooperation to focus on the next generation oncological drugs, preventative and therapeutic vaccines, as well as on modalities for women's health is also to be considered. So once this project is started, it's possible there may be the manufacturing and scaling up of other drugs. So there's still some light at the end of the tunnel. 4118, human resource capacity. Mr. Speaker, according to Kimberly Amado, human capital refers to the economic value of workers' experience and skills. The author stated that human capital allows the economy to grow. Mr. Speaker, if there is an increase in human capital, it follows that there will be an increase in science, in education, in social well-being. There will be a concomitant increase in equality, productivity, and improved participation, innovation. Medical personnel, doctors, nurses, pharmacists, technologies do make up the sinews of any health system. Mr. Speaker, the quality of healthcare is dependent on the quality of doctors. $500 million allocated in 2023 is inadequate, as capacity building is one of the pull factors leading to the migration of healthcare professionals. I recommend to the minister to have retention strategies that will reduce push factors and encourage our healthcare workers, our valued assets, to make their contribution to this fastest growing economy. Non-communicable diseases. Mr. Speaker, NCDs usually take up 70% of the health budget. It was a former president and retired brigadier, Mr. David Arthur Granger, in his book, Public Health is a Public Good, stated, as I quote, preventable lifestyle disease characterized most notoriously by alcohol and drug abuse, the excessive consumption of processed and fast foods, lack of recreation and sport and sedentary habits, such as cancers and diabetes, heart disease, hypertension, obesity. Those are the consequences and spin-offs of those kind of lifestyle and behaviors. The author went on to say that the known chronic diseases, along with injuries caused by careless road and workplace accidents, have resulted and inflicted huge social and economic costs, become a public health burden, and reduce human productivity and financial security of families. Mr. Speaker, there is certainly no health without mental health. In 2014, Guyana had the highest estimated suicide rate in the world, 44.2 per 100,000. In 2017, this rate was reduced by 24.63 per 100,000. It is the wish of this honorable member of this side of the divide that with the passage of the Suicide Prevention Act 2022 and the Mental Health Protection and Promotion Act 2022, a further reduction of the suicide rate will be realized. In addition, before coming up here, one of my colleagues from my side made me to know that if there's some mental health issue in Linden, the person will have to go till to Georgetown. We would have trained several doctors and healthcare workers on MH gap, and so they should be able to be first lines to assist that. I know they have mobile clinics, but we still want to, go to the next level, but make sure that those doctors who are trained don't lose what they, if they don't use it, they will lose it. Mr. Speaker, it is important to note that low social class, social deprivation, and lack of social support are among the determinants of health. So unemployment and the lack of adequate housing have been recognized as a major predictor of morbidity and mortality and can be associated with a number of chronic and severe health problems. So, Minister, Dr. Frank Anthony, the honorable member, special attention should be paid to the residents of Mocha as it relates to NCDs.
Honorable member, paying attention to the clock and giving you back the interruption, you will need an extension.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Comrade Speaker, I do move that the honorable member be given 5 minutes to conclude our presentation.
Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip. Honorable member, you may continue for 5 minutes to conclude.
Now putting on my mic. Mr. Speaker, according to PAHO WHO, communicable diseases inflict an unquantifiable social cost on individual, families, and communities with their health, economic, and social costs, preventing the full achievement of health. PAHO WHO further stated that HIV, AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria, and neglected infectious disease account for 6% of the total burden of disability-adjusted life years, dailies, across age groups and sexes in the Americas in 2017. Apart from screening for malaria and tuberculosis, it is about time that efforts be made to regularize and to regulate roadside dumps, canals, and cracks that provide habitats for mosquito larvae. Maternal child health, paragraph 4123, refers to the construction of a world-class pediatric and maternal hospital to revolutionize the quality of care provided. The operationalizing of the waiting homes at Maruka and the completion of the waiting homes in Mabaruma. While the homes at Pt2 and New Amsterdam are still to be operationalized, Mr. Speaker, the APNU AFC supports any intervention that will promote a woman's ability to receive the care needed to be safe and healthy throughout pregnancy and childbirth, while protecting women's sexual and reproductive rights. Mr. Speaker, maternal mortality and neonatal mortality is a national tragedy. Mr. Speaker, about 99% of these deaths are preventable. While skilled care by healthcare providers is an imperative, an enabling environment is equally important. There must be medical supplies and drugs and transportation and communication systems for referrals, supportive policies, informed women and family members, and mother-friendly approach to service delivery. In addition, there is anecdotal evidence that the mothers are poorly monitored through pregnancy and childbirth. Hence, the re-emphasis of a strong primary care focus in the polyclinics and so forth. Mr. Speaker, I have spoken to ad nauseum on this topical issue, thus encouraging the Minister of Health to ensure that appropriate interventions are made at the referral hospital as well as the other 4 levels of care so as to be in conformity with accepted standards and common obstetric practice. I will encourage the goodly Minister, the honorable member, to follow the best practices of countries like Finland, Greece, Poland. For every 100,000 births, they just have 3 mothers die, compared with Guyana with a maternal mortality rate of 112 per 100,000. Before I conclude, Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to highlight some of our achievements. Of course, we reduced the infant mortality rate. We did a lot of good things in the maternal mortality rate. We also reduced those. We did a lot of training. We had access to public health services for adolescents, increased access, constructed national mental health unit, which is in Kwamina Street. We had the first public health cardiac intensive care unit of the Guyana. We had new open competitive bidding processes was used for the first time in January 2016. We trained minors in Region 8 to use malaria rapid testing kits to administer treatment for the uncomplicated cases of malaria. We had 36 foreign medical missions facilitated, be it bridges and flying doctors, through the international desk. I think you dismantled the international desk. So, Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I just want to conclude. Permit me to conclude, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Budget 23, as presented by Mr. Ashley Singh, the Honorable Member and Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance, cannot be supported by the member of this side of the divide, as the measures put forward did not address the quality of life of the citizens of Guyana. The measures lacked predictability. The minister was unable to convince the Guyanese people, 40% of whom are hurting and poor, as in the World Bank report that was mentioned earlier, that a balance was not struck between addressing the pressing needs of today and any future investments. During the budget speech, the populace is more confused, Mr. Speaker, as the growth and development of the economy failed to differentiate, the Honorable Minister, Doctor, failed to differentiate between productivity and expansion, and was unable to differentiate, give the difference between expenditure versus capital formation. The 2023 budget is indicative of the PPPC not having a comprehensive plan to govern the country amid the growing oil economy. I would encourage the Guyanese people. Guyanese people, are you listening? Despite the dismal outlook, do not despair. I will let them know, Mr. Speaker, that the good life certainly cannot be established while particular families, a few friends and favorites pursue self-interest because of disability, poverty, illiteracy, or lack of opportunity. The Guyanese nation, fellow Guyanese, you cannot be left behind. The APNU AFC will be back at the helm of the government to make Guyana great again. I will remind the nation that there's still power to the people right on, and Luther continua. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. And now for the Honorable Member, Mr. Lee Williams. Lee, you may proceed. Honorable Member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For the last 3 days of budget debate, I have listened to the members of the opposition contribution on budget 2023. And every contributor who stood up to speak of no substance. They're clueless, incompetent. All they do is to come here to this honorable house to insult the Guyanese population by making a public statement that they do not support budget 2023. Every member repeatedly make it public that they do not support the budget. Mr. Speaker, I would like to respond to Honorable Dawn Hastings, who just stepped out. I would have been happy if she'd been sitting here. Mr. Speaker, indeed, Doctor's Quarter in Kako was constructed, but was an empty building. It was not furnished by the APNU AFC. That is why Doctor went in and come out, because it was not furnished by APNU AFC. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Dawn Hastings, Minister, who was Minister of Communities responsible for water. She did not do any major project in Upper Mazaruni. She ignored the water system in Camarang. She then became Minister of State. She did not use her high office to solve the overcrowding at Desiree Cesar Fox Secondary. She ignored that school as a Minister of State. Honorable, of course. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Don Hastings again spoke about land case in Upper Mazruni, which, even though I respect the court ruling, I want to put on the record, she did not tell the whole story. It is the PNC president, Desmond Hoy then, who handed over reduced land title to 2 shows in Upper Mazruni. If you don't know, just put it on the record today. I was 10 years old then at Guaramandang when that was handed over by Desmond Hoyt. It was a political gimmick just before election in 1991. So it was not the PPP who fooled the Amerindian people. It was the PNC led by youth Desmond Hoyt who reduced the land title and who put the Amerindian people in Upper Mas at stake and who put the lives of Amerindian Upper Mazruni in the court. And it's not the PPP government. Mr. Speaker, before I can begin my contribution, I would like to commend Honorable Senior Minister in the Office of the President with the responsibility of Finance, Dr. Ashni Kumar Singh, and his staff at the Ministry of Finance for working assiduously to bring the budget at the right time. Mr. Speaker, the People's Progressive Party Civic, since assuming office on 2nd August 2020, have been fulfilling its commitment outlined in its manifesto. And Budget 2023 is not exceptional. Budget 2023 is a balanced, people-centered budget addressing the pressing needs of today so that all Guyanese lives can be improved today while building prosperity for tomorrow. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2023 is a third full budget presented to this House by the PPPC government. Mr. Speaker, I want to put on record, not straying from my presentation, but to go back a little in Budget 2020, so that my Guyanese brothers and sisters who tune in today to hear our contribution must understand and remember that this year budget is a third full budget presented by the PPC government. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2020 was presented as an emergency budget in September 2020. In my view, that budget was to regularize what the APNU-AFC coalition did between 2015 and 2020. Mr. Speaker, in that budget, the People's Progressive Party Civic reversed all 200 heavily taxes, removed VAT from water, light, data that was imposed on all Guyanese, all citizens of Guyana, including the Amerindians and senior citizens. Not only that, Mr. Speaker, the PPPC government reinstated all policies and measures that the APNU-AFC coalition discontinued. We, the Guyanese, must not forget the hardship that was imposed on ordinary man. It is the PPPC government that brought back these policies and measures to bring disposable income to the Guyanese people. And some of the measures are the Because We Care cash grant for all school children, subsidies for senior citizens, one-off cash grant of $25,000 per household, bonus for joint services, to name a few. Mr. Speaker, the PPPC government continues to deliver yet another budget under the theme Improving Lives Today, Building Prosperity for Tomorrow. Indeed, the budget is a people-centered budget that brings relief to the ordinary. The budget before us is a budget that will improve the livelihood of all Guyanese, that can bring disposable income to the pockets of all Guyanese. Mr. Speaker, I have noted remarks made by leader of the opposition, and I have in my hand the statement he made in the Kaiser News that the budget 781.9 billion as a dead meat, and a press release by the opposition leader stating that the increases of all pension are shameful, criticizing increase of all public assistance as shameful, criticizing because we care cash grant to all Guyanese children as shameful, increasing Amerindian CSOs from 2,500 to 3,000 in 2023 as shameful, providing the breakfast for school children as shameful, training of our young people in health sciences as shameful.
Honorable member, you're quoting someone and saying it's shameful in the House?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Ramjatan yesterday stated that 2023 is to buy out vote. Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask honorable member, what did you do to buy votes? Nothing, absolutely nothing. That is why you are there and will be there on the opposition seat for a long, long time. Mr. Speaker, instead of buying votes, the APNUFC tried to steal Guyana democracy for 5 months, from 2nd March to
Yeah, but I won't allow stealing either.
Mr. Speaker, I can use the word they try to hide or sink democracy of Guyana. Mr. Speaker, all they do is come here to divide Guyanese population. Use race as a bait. Mr. Speaker, we as the government, PPPC government, will not divide but rather build one Guyana. Mr. Speaker, I want to put on record that 2023 budget, 781.9 billion, is a people-centered budget regardless of which society you belong to. 4.7 billion is allocated for Amerindian development, an initiative to improve the livelihood of Amerindian people. Mr. Speaker, I want to outline some of the development programs that will be implemented in 2023. Youth will be employed under CSO program from 2,000 to 3,000 in 2023. A further 5 million is allocated for land titling project. 2.7 billion is budgeted for Amerindian Development Fund, which include training in tourism and hospitality, improvement on transportation, presidential grant, agriculture, processing, and food security. These programs will alleviate the village economy. Mr. Speaker, the vision of the PPPC government, led by His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali, the low carbon development strategy 2020 vision has moved to a reality in 2022. A major milestone was achieved for Guyana. Mr. Speaker, the PPPC government is a government of one Guyana. I want to put on record that between 2015 and 2020, a sitting APNUFC government minister came to this house and said that if the Amerindian needs more land, the Amerindian must not benefit from oil revenue. And he further went to say that the Amerindians are avaricious, meaning greedy, and never apologized to date. And the Amerindians will remember and must not forget this insult to the first people of Guyana. Mr. Speaker, the PPPC government has a heart not only to the Amerindians, but to the Guyanese population. So the revenues from oil belongs to the people of Guyana, and the Amerindians will not be left behind. Mr. Speaker, the People's Progressive Party civic government has a national plan for all Guyana from all revenues, including oil and forest. I want to put on record that under the LCDS, the PPPC government has committed 15% of revenue received from forest carbon credit that will go to the Amerindian development. This will be invested in village sustainability plan produced by the Amerindian village and community. This is in addition to the national budget that the villages in the hinterland will be benefiting from. Mr. Speaker, the APNU-AFC coalition replaced the LCDS with Guyana Green State Strategy. And in that strategy, it proposes the revision of Amerindian Act through an inclusive and consensual process based on free, prior, and informed consent to address issues of concern to Amerindian people and bring the act in line with international obligations. In 2015, the APNU-AFC, during the campaign at Cameron, Mr. Nigel Yu, that was then he was the candidate for AFC, and Honorable Don Hastings, promised that they will revise the Amerindian Act 2006 as soon as they assume office. Mr. Speaker, the APNU-AFC, who now sit in the opposition, did nothing, absolutely nothing, to revise the Amerindian Act 2006. Mr. Speaker, I want to put on record that provision is given in Budget 2023 to commence consultation of the Amerindian Act 2006, and we will fulfill our promise. Mr. Speaker, let me turn to education. Our children are our future leaders for tomorrow. And my government has allocated $9.4 billion to improve infrastructure, new schools for learners. As a matter of fact, new schools were constructed at Iturumbang, Dark Point, Isano, Kurutuku. New school will be constructed and completed at Ramadan, to name a few. In 2023, the lives of education will be improved. Improve performance, level, and curricular development, textbook, teacher training on the coast and hinterland. Mr. Speaker, the PPPC government reinstated Because We Care cash grant to all school children that was discontinued or abolished by APNU and AFC in 2015 upon assuming office. And 2020-21 school year, because we cash grant program was reinstated from $10,000 prior 2015 to 15,000 plus the 5,000, sorry, 15,000 plus 4,000 uniform allowance that give the child $19,000 per child. In 2021-2022, it was increased to 25,000 plus 5,000 uniform allowance, giving the child 30,000 per child disposable to the children of Guyana. And Mr. Speaker, in 2023, the People's Progressive Party Civic has increased because we care cash run to almost 34% from 25,000 to 35,000 plus 5,000 uniform allowance, giving a child of $40,000 per child. This will benefit over 214,000 school children in public and private school, and this will place additional 8.6 billion in the hands of school-age children parents. Putting in the perspective, Mr. Speaker, because of time, I have known a father and a mother who has 6 children who struggle without the Bs, boots, bicycle boots, and all the Bs that you can think of under the APNU AFC government. Mr. Speaker, under the PPPC government, we do care about our school children. So if you do a simple maths problem solving, you will find the answer that a parent who I know of 6 children will receive 40,000 per child times 6, 240,000 to one family, 240,000 to one family in their pocket. And this is reality, not a guess. These measures are not shameful or buying votes, but rather improving the lives of Guyanese school children. Honorable Mr. Speaker, Honorable Ms. Finance, at yesterday's presentation spoke about equity. Honorable member came to this house and lectured us about putting the poor people first. Mr. Speaker, honorable member seems to be losing her memories and has a dead brain. I want to remind my Guyanese brothers and sisters that the same APNUFC, upon assuming office in 2015, forget about the poor people. Instead of giving the poor first, they increase their salary 50%. Instead of giving the poor first, the APNUFC take away $10,000 because we care cash grant from the poor school children. Instead of giving the poor first, they dismiss 2,000 CSOs. Instead of giving the poor first, they take away subsidies from pensioners. Instead of giving the poor first, they impose 200 new taxes to the poor. And I can go on and on. Mr. Speaker, 2023 781.9 budget is a budget that will bring relief and transform Amerindians and all Guyanese under one Guyana initiative. Mr. Speaker, a one Guyana government does not only care about one sector. Our elderly pension has increased 60% since 2020, from 20,500 to 33,000 in 2023. In addition, Mr. Speaker, our senior citizens have benefited from one-off cash grant of 25,000 and 28,000 in 2022, respectively.
Honorable member, I want you to benefit from an extension, so let's get someone to move that.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask that my honorable colleague is given time to conclude his presentation.
Thank you, Honorable Minister Teixeira. Honorable member, you have 5 minutes to conclude.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Water is life, so in 2023, 1.4 billion will be spent on for further upgrade and extension of water supply in hinterland of region 1, 2, 7, and 9. Mr. Speaker, in August 2022, I visited Iseneru Tasrin Isanu. Sad to say, Mr. Speaker, the then APNUFC, who now speak about equity, forget to give the poor with potable water to the residents of Tasrin and Iseneru. Mr. Speaker, today as I speak, Tasrin, Iseneru, Kamrang, Juwala, and Rwanda will now enjoy the flow of water in their cups, and their cups will continue to overflow under the PPPC government. Thanks to Mr. Colin Crowell, who visited these areas in the later part of 2022 to commission this water system. Mr. Speaker, in health sector, we have done a lot of work on health center. For the first time in Kamrang Cameron is soon to have a functioning new theater that will, with the new equipment and improved laboratory dental services. First-time surgeries will be done in Cameron District Hospital under the PPPC government. Improve health services, extension of health facilities with attending government medical officer at Mbamaday, Kaikan, Ichirumbang, Purima, Juala, to name a few. Mr. Speaker, the government has trained 20 community health workers in Region 7 as part of PPC government plan to improve health services in Amerindian communities, and will continue to train the young people in the respective region in order for them to return to their respective village to give their services to their village. So, Mr. Speaker, I can go on, but I want to conclude, Mr. Speaker, that I've been hearing from the opposition side about friends and families, but I want to let you know, or the House know, that we are friends and family, even the opposition side. That is why spouse of the honorable member on the down Hastings get contracts every year from the government, and he alone benefit from the contract. Whereas the village council should have get the contract, he gets the contract. That's because he's our friends and families in our region. Mr. Speaker, because you are our friends and families, your grandchildren, your children will be benefited from it because we care cash grant. Because you are our friends and families, your grandmother, your grandfather will be benefited from increased pension, Mr. Speaker. Because you are our family, we on the government side is calling or appealing on the opposition to be part of the solution by joining the government and pass the budget 2023. That should be noted as being part of the solution and not a problem. So, Mr. Speaker, I commend and support the budget 2023, 781.9 billion, with no new taxes be passed in the House, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member Ms. Lee Williams. And let us welcome the Honorable Member, Ms. Beverly Alert, for her maiden presentation in the National Assembly. Honorable Member, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before I get into my presentation on Budget 2023, if you will permit me, Mr. Speaker, to express my sincere appreciation to the clerk and staff of the public buildings. They have been nothing but helpful, Mr. Speaker, and very professional. I commend them, sir. And to the members on both sides of the House who welcomed me so warmly, I really appreciate it. And especially to you, Mr. Speaker, your words of encouragement, taking the time to chat with me, take me through a few steps, and your offer of an open door should I ever have need for it. I thank you, sir. Mr. Speaker, before I get really into Budget 2023, let me address a few things that I've been hearing in the House. And first, it has to do with the engagement with the National Tushao Council. I don't know, sir, how the People's Progressive Party civic government engages with the Amerindian community, but I can say for the coalition government, our policy, our position was that we respect the Amerindian peoples, we establish protocols for engagement, and that is why, sir, in 2019, sir, we signed a memorandum of understanding with the National Tushao Council to establish how we engage with that group that represents the Amerindian peoples of Guyana. It's here, sir. Further, sir, to quote from a DPI article of November 5th, 2018, that article, sir, sets out and it reports on assistance given by the Ministry of Natural Resources to the National Tushao Council. office supplies. It states what will be given, and it also states what was already given in the form of computer equipment and other supplies. And there are the records within the Ministry of Natural Resources, I'm sure still exists, of how the coalition government engaged and provided for the National Two-Shows Council, including renting a building for them, sir. Mr. Speaker, we've also heard about Amerindian land titling. And let us go to the foundation of that. And it is rested in when we became an independent nation. You know, in 1965, Ghana's first Amerindian Member of Parliament, Stephen Campbell, accompanied a PNC delegation headed by then Forbes Burnham to London to negotiate the terms of Guyana's imminent independence. Annex C of the independence agreement stipulated that the independent government provide legal ownership or rights of occupancy for Amerindians over areas and reservations or parts thereof where any tribal community of Amerindians is now ordinary resident or settled. And it went on, the article, that, and I provide this, sir, by 1976, the Amerindian Act, passed by the then PNC government to give effect to Annex C, resulted in some Amerindian villages obtaining titles to their lands. 1976. And this is reported in Guyana Times, sir. Further in Guyana Chronicle, February 12, 2020, and I'll get that report for you, sir. There's an article that stated that by then, 15,552 square miles, or 18.8% of Guyana's land mass, was titled, of which 11.9% was done by, under President Forbes Burnham and President Hoyt. Those are facts, Mr. Speaker. Those are facts. Mr. Speaker, let me first and foremost state that, and to allow me to place on record, appreciation for the work done by all the public servants across all the ministries, all the departments who made their contributions to get the budget to this House. It's not an easy task, so their work is appreciated, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I've listened to the members of the government side of the House, comparing what the APNU AFC did while in government to what they're doing now. Mr. Speaker, 2015 to 2019, Ghana was not an oil-producing nation. The big bucks of oil and gas were not available. That period, the period of the coalition government, and the present period of this PPP government is like chalk to cheese, Mr. Speaker, chalk to cheese. You just can't compare it. But let's look at some facts, Mr. Speaker. As I said, what the present government has available for spending now was not available during the term of office of the coalition government. That is fact. What is also fact, and which you will not hear from the government side, is the fact that the revenues they are now enjoying and spending, this big spending, and it seems as though on the government side it's just spend, spend, spend. Well, on this side, we're talking results, results, results. And so that money that they're now spending, Mrs. Speaker, it was made possible by the hard work, the diligence, the commitment of the coalition government under whose stewardship, especially that of former Minister of Natural Resources, Raphael Trotman, who saw this country move into first oil in just about 4 years, half the time of the global national average, which is 9 years. We did it in 4 years, Mr. Speaker, less than half the time. From discovery to production, the fastest ramp up ever. That's a fact. Mr. Speaker, It took vision, it took drive, and absolute commitment to the people of Guyana to get there in 4 years. Mr. Speaker, when the coalition government forged ahead to bring Guyana's oil and gas industry on stream, there was a clear, unambiguous policy of where we're going with this newfound wealth. Our intention is that the revenues from the industry must be for the development of a better quality of life for all Guyanese. Not just some, not just family, not just friends and favorites, all Guyanese. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, when you look at it, the first FPSO was named Lisa Unity. It set out the trajectory that the coalition government was going to move in. It sent a clear message that Guyana's newfound wealth must first and foremost forge national unity. That's the first thing that our wealth must do for the people, all the people of this country. Sadly, Mr. Speaker, sadly, the focus of the present government is just the opposite. Look at it further, Mr. Speaker. Subsequent FPSOs, the Lisa Destiny. It was an indication of where we were going to go next, and I'm talking progression and development, Mr. Speaker. Ensuring that Guyana fulfills its destiny as the breadbasket of the Caribbean. Food security for our people. That was the vision, Mr. Speaker, for a unified people moving towards a destiny that we'd heard about ever so long, pre-independence. Guyana, the food basket of the Caribbean. Food security, ensuring food security. Mr. Speaker, Guyana was once the big brother of the Caribbean, the go-to place for opportunities, for teachers, for nurses, for well-trained people in all the fields. The attorneys of Guyana represented this country well all over the world. Yes, we do to a large extent. I agree with you, sir. Right, we need to get back there. That, Mr. Speaker, is our destiny, to be the big brother of the region and managed carefully. We can realize that destiny without taking anything away from the Guyanese people, without making them feel as though foreigners are taking away their jobs and wealth. We can do it, Mr. Speaker. Now, the vision was having placed ourselves well on the path to realize our destiny, then as a unified nation, we would have walked hand in hand to prosperity. And so you had the FPSO, Lisa Prosperity. You know, Mr. Speaker, it was the intention that all our people enjoy the prosperity of our nation, the future of all generations secured. That is where we were going to head. It was a vision, Mr. Speaker. It was a vision with a plan that would encompass each and every Guyanese. You know, before we start our daily proceedings here in the House, the clerk would read a prayer. I don't know how many of us listen to that prayer, Mrs. Speaker, but there is a line that speaks to the vision so to lead. And that, Mr. Speaker, that was the coalition vision, to lead this nation in unity towards a common destiny, to prosperity, a vision of a better quality of life for all our people, a vision of unity, as I said, and of prosperity. What we're witnessing today, Mr. Speaker, is a total reversal of noble aspirations, you know, the realization of our destiny, all our people, and prosperity for all our people. Mr. Speaker, one thing we can agree on, both sides of the House, is that Budget 2023 is indeed the largest budget to date. You know, over $700 million for spending. And about half of that, Mr. Speaker, will be spent on capital works. Roads here, bridges there, schools, a building here, a building there, building everywhere. Big contracts for the boys. But over here on this side of the house, Mr. Speaker, it's about value for money. It's not just the spending. We want value for money. And Mr. Speaker, for instance, take a drive through Parfait Harmony in Region 3. The government talks of then they to make a lot of noise about the 4-lane highway. Are we glad for the 4-lane highway? You know, the bridge across the Demerara River, we're waiting for it, the kilometers and roads and streets being done. However, Mr. Speaker, look at the quality of works done. 2 vehicles cannot pass side by side on those streets in what we the West Siders call the area. One would have to go off the edge of the road onto the shoulder so that the other one can pass. That's the reality on the ground. Mere months after these roads and streets are done, Mr. Speaker, potholes appear. It's like pox, contagious. They're spreading. Today's one pothole. Within a few days, it's a series of potholes. You know, when I go through Dairy, I'm reminded of a satirical show where reference was made to mommy pothole, daddy pothole, and all them pick-me potholes. Mr. Speaker, in Dairy, they're granddaddy potholes. You don't have the gutter drains the road or the road drains the gutter. Because during the rainy season, gutter and potholes are one. You'd see young women, baby in hand, bag over one shoulder, baby bag over the other shoulder, shoes in the hand, struggling through mud to get to a dry spot where they can clean off and put on their shoes. That's the reality, Mr. Speaker. Even in the dry weather, taxis and minibuses refuse to go through certain streets in Dairy because of the destruction those streets would cause to their vehicles. And we ain't talking the old streets and the old roads, we're talking the new ones that do months back. That's the underground reality, Mr. Speaker. It's not just about how much we spend and the massive allocation. It's about how we improving people's quality of lives. It is about getting value for money. Mr. Speaker, continuing to look at Region 3. Over 60% of the children writing NGSE fail to score half of the pass mark in all subject areas. Primary education, Mr. Speaker, primary education. You know, the Honorable Minister spoke of the schools being built, the allocations, the textbook, the buses, the feeding programs, and we support that. But what was not addressed, Mr. Speaker, was that the fact that with all the money being spent, too many of our nation's children are leaving school and they don't have the passes to get into university. They don't have the wherewithal to join the workforce.
Honorable member, we have this wherewithal to give you an extension.
Thank you. Comrade Speaker, I do move that the honourable member be given 5 minutes to conclude her presentation.
Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip. Honorable member, you have 5 minutes to conclude your maiden presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Chief Whip. You know, Mr. Speaker, I was talking about children coming out of school and not being equipped for the workplace. We all know that our schools need help. Our teachers need help. Mr. Speaker, look at what's happening in the schools now. You will find parents going in and assaulting teachers, parents that you would want to think would know better. They go in there and be judge, jury, and executioner, dispensing their own brand of classroom justice. Mr. Speaker, how will Budget 2023 cater for the trauma that those teachers, those parents have to go through? How will it ensure the safety of our children? You know, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Dr. Ashley Singh is a brilliant economist. Give him some data, give the Honorable member some data, some numbers, and he would craft any story you want here. Sad ones, happy ones, angry ones. And Budget 2023 is no different. It's a cleverly crafted story, Mr. Speaker. But I believe that the PPP has underestimated the capacity of the Guyanese people to discern illusions. The average Guyanese on the street, they may not have their PhD and MSc and MBAs, but they have a healthy dose of common sense. And they can easily recognize when they get in a 6 for 9, Mr. Speaker. Never underestimate the common sense of the Guyanese people. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to talk about salary increase. I wanted to address the conditions our women folks are living through. You know, every day you open the papers, Mr. Speaker, some woman is being assaulted. Oftentimes they lose their lives, Mr. Speaker. You know, just recently you read that gruesome report of a woman, her intestines ripped out. Mr. Speaker, we want to see value for money from all these programs. And we support the cash grant given to children. And we want to see more. We want to see that the children who go to clinics, the preschoolers, they must get too. You know, and hopefully by next year, when we come back here, it's not just a one-off annual grant to the school children, but every term they can get a package. That is what we want to see, Mr. Speaker. You know, you're asking for proposals. There are proposals, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me, as I come to a close, address the children we have in institutional care. Mr. Speaker, we all agree that the children are our future. Why do we have so many children in institutional care? Children belong with families, and there must be the social program that would help persons who want to adopt children to do so. The state must assist in that so that our future, not in institutions, our future growing up in homes, growing up with families that can love them and care for them and nurture them so that they can take their rightful place in society. Mr. Speaker, a great irony is taking place here in our country. And it's final, Mr. Speaker. Over off the coast of Guyana, you have the offshore oil and gas industry, bringing in great revenues. And we're glad for that. We worked towards that. It is also a great polluter. In the hinterland, you have the forests. You can refer to it as the factory that is cleaning up the pollution, the lungs. And recently, Guyana signed this massive agreement that would see carbon credits come into this country. Great job. But Mr. Speaker, why is it that the area where the lungs and the factory is cleaning up the environment, cleaning up the pollution, they're just getting the minute percentage of the earnings? Give 50% to the Amerindian people, give it to the National Two-Shout Council so that Amerindian villages can decide how they want it, because they are the ones taking care of the forest, they are the ones preserving the forest, and they deserve it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member, on setting the pace for your future presentations in the House. Thank you very much. And now, for the experience, Dr. Jennifer Westford, our Honorable Member.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker,